As I walked along the stream that sunny afternoon, I had no idea that my life was about to change forever. My name's Hannah, and this is the story of a moment of curiosity that turned into the biggest mistake of my life. The air was fresh and filled with the scent of flowers and fresh grass. I usually go for walks here to clear my head, but today something caught my attention. A beautiful horse was grazing in a nearby meadow, its coat glistening in the sunlight, and I found myself growing tired. DS the fence, as I approached, the horse raised its head and looked at me with gentle, intelligent eyes. There was something so calm and compelling in its gaze that I couldn't resist moving closer without really thinking twice. I climbed over the wooden fence. My shoes sank slightly into the soft soil on the other side. The horse didn't flinch as I walked closer to it. Instead, it stood perfectly still, as if waiting for me. I reached out my hand, amazed at how soft its coat felt under my fingers, and I had never been so close to a horse before. I was impressed by its size and strength, but despite its large body, it had a gentleness to it that made me feel at ease. As I ran my hand along its side, the horse seemed to enjoy the attention. Its ears were relaxed, and it gave a slight snort, which I took to be a sign of contentment. Encouraged by its calm demeanor, I decided to explore further. My hand moved lower, and that's when I noticed something I had never seen before, dangling between the horse's hind legs. What I saw was its genitals. I know it sounds naive now, but I didn't know much about it at the time. Curiosity got the better of me, and before I could convince myself not to, I reached out to touch it. The texture surprised me. It was softer than I expected on the outside, but I could feel something solid underneath the surface. As I continued to explore with my fingers, I noticed it starting to change. The solidity I felt started to grow and expand. I was fascinated. I had never seen anything like it before, and a part of me couldn't look away. It continued to grow much larger than I had ever imagined. By the time it stopped, it must have been at least a foot long. The horse won and tossed its head. I assumed it was a positive reaction. Looking back, I realized how silly and wrong my assumptions were, but in that moment I was so curious I couldn't think clearly. I squatted down to get a better look. Noticing for the first time, found the horse's testicles much larger than I expected. They hung down and were heavy. Without thinking, I reached out to touch them. They were also warm and alive, with a subtle movement inside that I couldn't explain. As I continued to explore, I noticed a clear liquid starting to flow from the head of the horse's penis. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before, sticky and shiny, almost like honey. The more I touched, the more this liquid flowed, dripping down, forming small puddles on the ground. In a moment of reckless curiosity, I decided to taste it. The taste was surprisingly sweet, reminding me of avocados. Now I know how dangerous and inappropriate this was, but at the time I was too caught up in the moment to consider the consequences of my actions. As it continued, more and more fluid came out. I couldn't handle it, and I found myself struggling to swallow it all. Some of it leaked from my lips, staining the ground. The horse's genitals seemed to grow so much larger. My mouth suddenly stretched uncomfortably. Without warning, the horse began to ejaculate. The force of it took me by surprise, and I couldn't contain it all. It sprayed onto my face and hair, leaving me wet and sticky. In the midst of this chaos, I felt a rush of excitement and pleasure that I am now deeply ashamed of. I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't notice someone approaching until it was too late for me to panic. I looked up and saw my husband, Joke, standing at the fence. His face was one of shock and disgust. "Hannah, what the hell are you doing?" His voice was filled with disbelief and anger. Reality crashed down around me. I scrambled to my feet, trying to wipe the mess off my face and clothes. "Joke, can I explain?" I stuttered, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew that no explanation would make things right. Joke's face was twisted in anger and pain. "Explain how you can explain this," he shouted. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt sick, the full weight of what I had done hitting me all at once. Please joke, I'm so sorry, I don't know why. I sat there crying for hours until there were no more tears left, the horse standing nearby, oblivious to the pain and chaos it had inadvertently caused as the sun began to set. I finally picked myself up and headed home, dreading what would happen next. The next few days were filled with arguments, tears, silence, and contempt. Joke moved away temporarily, saying he needed space to process what had happened. I was devastated and unsure of why I had acted so recklessly and determined to make sure it never happened again. Joke and I began to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were times when I thought we wouldn't make it, when the pain and betrayal seemed too much to bear, but we persevered, one day at a time. I promised myself and Joke that I would never do anything like that again. I stayed away from farms and pastures, turned away if I saw a horse in the distance. It was a constant reminder of my mistake, but also my commitment to change. As the weeks went by, I saw small signs of progress. Joke began to be gentler with me, although the pain was still evident in his eyes. We started couples therapy together to work through our issues. It was hard work, often painful, but I was determined to prove to Joke that I could be the wife he deserved. One night, about 6 months after the incident, Joke held my hand as we sat on the couch. "Hannah," he gently said, "I want you to know that I am trying to forgive you. It is not easy and I am still hurt, but I see how you are trying to change. I thought we could get through this." Tears welled up in my eyes, but this time they were tears of hope and gratitude. "Thank you, Joke," I whispered. "I promise to never let you down again." As I reflected on this journey, I was shocked to see how close I had come to losing everything. My moment of weakness had almost destroyed my marriage and my sense of self. But it had also taught me valuable lessons about self-control, the importance of communication in a relationship, and the power of forgiveness. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would always be a part of Joke that remembered what had happened, and I would carry the burden of my actions for the rest of my life. But I was committed to moving forward to be a better person and a better wife. If there was one thing I wanted others to take away from my story, that no matter how curious you are, no matter what impulses you feel, always consider the consequences of your actions. The thrill of the moment is never worth the pain and hurt it can cause to yourself and those you love. As for me, I am focused on the future. Joke and I are slowly rebuilding trust and intimacy. We are talking about starting a family, something that seemed impossible in the dark days after my mistake. It is a sign of how far we have come, and it gives me hope for what is to come. I now know that true happiness does not come from fleeting moments of excitement or forbidden experiences, but from the deep and lasting bonds we form with the people we love. It comes from being true to ourselves and our values, even when temptation comes. My journey of healing and redemption is not over yet, but I am committed to overcoming it every day. I strive to be the best version of myself, to honor Joke's forgiveness and build a future filled with love, trust, and mutual respect. As I write this, I am reminded of a quote I once read: "The greatest glory in life lies not in never falling, but in rising." Every time we fall, I have fallen hard, but I am rising stronger and wiser than before, and so despite all the pain and regret, I am grateful. The journey of rebuilding trust is never a straight path, as teach. Weeks passed by successfully. Months. Joke and I continued to work on our relationship, but there were still times of tension and doubt. I could see the pain lingering in his eyes, a constant reminder of why terrible mistake. One evening, as we sat in the living room after a particularly difficult therapy session, Joke turned to me with a serious look on his face. "Hannah," he said softly, "I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me." My heart was pounding, but I nodded. "Of course, Joke, anything." He took a deep breath before continuing. "Have you ever done anything like this before, or else with any other animals?" The question hit me like a punch in the face. I was silent for a long moment, then he reached out and took my hand. Hannah, we can't avoid horses for the rest of our lives. At some point we have to face this. I nodded with tears in my eyes. You're right. I will go, I promise. I won't let you down. The wedding day came, and he was nervous as we drove to the farm. He could feel the tension radiating off Joke. As we arrived, he saw the stables in the distance, and he felt his stomach lurch. But as the day went on, something unexpected happened. Being close to the horses, seeing them from a distance, hearing their occasional brays didn't make me feel tempted or ashamed. Instead, it reinforced my commitment to Joke and our marriage. Every time I caught a glimpse of a horse, it reminded me of how close I came to losing and strengthened my resolve to never make that mistake again. During the reception, Joke's eyes kept glancing between me and the stables. Finally, as the sun set, he took my hand and said, "Let's go for a walk." He said. My heart was pounding. I followed him, and we walked in silence until we reached the fence of the horse pasture, a beautiful bay. The horse was grazing nearby. Joke turned to me, his eyes searching my face. "How are you feeling right now?" he asked softly. I took a deep breath, carefully considering my answer. "Grateful." I finally said, "Grateful for him, for us, for this chance to make things right." The horse was beautiful, but that was all that had happened. That day was a terrible mistake. I would never do it again. To be here with you now, this is all I want, all I will ever want. Joke's eyes filled with tears, and he pulled me into a tight hug. We stood there, holding each other for a long time, as the sun disappeared behind the hills. That day marked a turning point in our healing process. It didn't automatically fix everything. We still had a lot of work to do, trust to rebuild. But it was a significant step forward in the months that followed. Joke and I continued working on our relationship. We tried to be more open with each other, sharing our fears and insecurities, instead of letting them fester. We also started planning for our future again, something we hadn't done since before the incident. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, Joke turned to me with a serious look on his face. "Hannah," he said, he'd been thinking, "I think I'm ready to start trying for a baby." I felt my heart skip a beat. We had talked about having kids before this all happened, but I had assumed that dream was shattered. "Are you sure?" I asked without daring to hope. Joke nodded with a small smile on his face. "I'm sure. What happened was horrible, and it will always be a part of our story, but it's not our whole story. I love you, Hannah. I want to build a family with you." Tears of joy roll down my face as I hold him tight. "I love you too, Joke. I am so very much writing this. I am 6 months pregnant with our first child. Our journey has not been easy, and I know we will face more challenges in the future, but I am not the same person I was that fateful day by the stream. I am stronger, more self-aware, and so grateful for the love and life I have. For anyone who may be tempted to give in to a momentary impulse, no matter how exciting it may seem,
I urge you to stop and think.
Consider the potential consequences, not only for yourself, but for those you love. No fleeting thrill is worth the pain and heartache that can follow, and for those struggling to forgive a partner who has made a terrible mistake, I can only say that forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to accept the hurt, but if both parties are committed to healing and growing, it is possible to rebuild trust and create a stronger relationship than before. For me, I will spend the rest of my life making sure I am worthy of the forgiveness and trust that Jake has shown me every day. I choose to be faithful, honest, and loving. Did I choose our marriage, our future, our family? Our past mistakes don't have to define us. They can if we let them be catalysts for profound change and growth. My moment of weakness almost cost me everything, but it also made me a better, stronger person. It taught me the true value of love, trust, and forgiveness. As I felt our baby kicking in my belly, I was filled with hope for the future. Joke and I have weathered a storm that could have torn us apart, but instead it brought us closer together. We are not perfect, and our relationship is not perfect, but it is real. It is honest and built on a foundation of love and mutual respect that has been tested and has proven its strength. Our story is not over in so many ways. It feels like it is just beginning, and I am grateful for every moment, every challenge, every opportunity to show Joke and me that true love can conquer all.